Hello, Inner Sanctum SuperCoach fans. Welcome to our show. Looking back at round eight and the upcoming round nine. We've got the full squad in again today. Mike, how you doing, buddy?
Going very good. A really important league win on the weekend, so I'm up and about.
Nice one. And Mick, how you doing, mate, this week? I know I beat you in one league, but how you doing?
Did by a measly 13 points. I'm still bitter about that, Scotty. But other than that, I'm doing well. Thank you, mate. Very well.
Nice one. And Dan, is your SuperCoach side like your beloved Blues, struggling a bit? How you doing?
No, I pulled out 3 out of 4 wins this week, so I'm happy with that. A lot better than Carlton. So yeah, going okay.
Nice one. We'll get stuck into it. Our usual thing to kick off the show each week are Gary's and Nathan's from the round. I might start with you, Dan, and who your Gary's and Nathan's are from your side. Your gun Gary Ablets and your not so good Nathan's.
Alrighty, so I'm gonna have to go for my gun, Jack Zabel, and who's gonna be the that is my Nathan there, Lockie Neal. So I brought him in a couple of weeks ago when he pulled out that ridiculous score. I thought surely he's back to his best, and he was back to a measly, absolutely terrible 63 on the weekend against us, and really we were shocking. So I really don't get how it was actually basically just Dunkley toweling up the entire team. So yeah, I don't know. That'd be my pick for my Gary and Nathan this week.
Yeah, I reckon probably haven't thought as much about how much of an impact Dunkley was going to have. Like, he was absolutely monstrous on Friday night. Points galore. So I think he's probably actually getting those clearances that Lockie Neal used to get as being the only one who could do it. So, yeah. Mike, what about you, mate? Your Gary's and Nathan's for round eight.
Yeah, I think Dan stole my thunder a bit on my Nathan because I had Lockie Neal as well. He's just not his output. I don't know if it's the Dunkley factor because you can't go from one extreme to the other so easily. Dunkley played in that game against the Roos, but you take out that 176, he's got 102, 195, 76, and a 63. So if you've got him, I think I'm going to bring him up later as something to consider going to the bye rounds, given his drop in price. But my Gary for the round. Is this man? Is this man here? Good old Samson Ryan from the Tigers. Now Samson, I bagged him a few weeks ago after his couldn't tell if it was a footy or a bar of soap when he played against Port Adelaide. It was dropping marks left, right, and centre. But on the weekend, granted, he's against some pretty shithouse opposition, but he was pretty damn good. 31 hitouts, 14 of those to advantage, and he probably was responsible for one of my league wins. And scoring 104 points went up in price of almost 50k, and he's now up to 300 and should pocket me a little bit more. So he's going to be a good downgrade shortly. So good on you, Sams. You've made a good recovery, mate. I'll kudos to you.
Nice one. How long is he going to be in the side for? Who knows? So, Mick, what about you, mate? Gary's and Nathan's from round eight.
Yeah, my Gary this week is the Bond, of course. Another 162 to back up. I think he had 122 last week and 180 the week before that. So he's averaging 132 for the season now and just absolutely smashing it. And this is my Nathan, this bloke right here, LDU, pumped out an amazing 59 on the weekend to follow his 72 from last week and 90 from the week before. So he has. It's actually a bit of cause for concern for me because, well, I think a lot of people actually would have brought him in this week, or no, probably not this week, but after the first couple of rounds, realising his scoring potential. But I'm not sure what happened I didn't see much of the North game. Only saw maybe about a quarter worth. And he seemed to be getting plenty of the pill. I think he ended up with 25 touches, but he must have just absolutely butchered the footy. So that's he's my Nathan this week, 59, and probably cost me at least a league win against you, Scotty, and possibly another league win actually where I lost by about 50 or 60. So yeah, that's a bit of a concern. But anyway.
Yeah, I'm not sure what's going on. I've actually got him as well, so that wasn't the reason I beat you. But yeah, he's maybe he's still getting over whatever injury he had. My start with my Gary because finally after we've talked about him, I reckon I've talked about him every single week on this thing. as my Nathan is this man. Finally, Mr. Brayshaw, Andy Brayshaw, finally came through with the goods. I did predict in our chat group your score 154. I was pretty close with 149. I did say last week I'd put the captain on him as a joke. I should have. But he finally came through. He's back. So I'm expecting at least 130 again this week, onwards and upwards. Maybe even Brownlow talk will happen in a couple of weeks. That's how confident I am in him now. And my Nathan this week is Brad Scott. Our man Setters. I know we've talked about Will Setterfield a bit on this show, but at least even against Geelong, he was still tending to centre bounces a heap. And so I thought, oh well, a couple of low scores, maybe that'll turn its way around. 0 centre bounce attempts. Centre bounce. What's the word I'm looking for? Attendances against Port Adelaide. They just chuck him on a wing. He's not going to score anything anymore. So, Brad Scott, you were winning when he was in the middle, and now you're losing. Maybe there's something to that. Anyway, hopefully Brad's watching and he can adjust for my side accordingly. We'll jump right ahead and have a look at a few things for this week coming up for round 9. We'll start with maybe just, rather than reeling off half a dozen rookies, we might just go with one each that we think may be worth bringing into our side this week. I might start with you, Mike. Who you got on the radar for your side?
Yeah, look, this is someone that Dan flagged last week, and we had a bit of a laugh about it, and thought, what are you talking about, Dan? But had a look at him on the weekend, and Mr. Rory Atkins, coming from the Crows and picked up by the Suns, scores of 89 and 68, 203,000. I think I'm bringing him in this week. Break even of negative 42. Again, projected to make close to 50K, and hey, he's playing the mighty Eagles. So he's expecting to score big. So projected score, I reckon he could get 50, 60 plus thousand in the bank. So he's definitely my pickup this week as a downgrade option. Anyone who plays the Eagles, pick them up, especially if they are in the ruck, because they will dominate.
A big game for Witsy coming up, obviously, this week then as well.
Yeah, big day for Witsy.
Yeah. Dan, what about you, mate? You got a rookie for us for this week?
Yeah, just a question over one would be Blake Drury, 102.4K. He's played the one game, but he's at 51. He might be one of those picks where if you were just short of a player, and maybe you want to get rid of one of those rookies that perhaps hasn't been scoring well enough, that they've only made like about 100 or 150,000 or something on them. Because he's 102, at least you'll get about $100,000 back to put into another player. Just might be an option. Obviously, he's only played the one, but there's really not a heap out there for this week.
No, going early on players. I went early on Lord from Fort, and he didn't get to the third game. So you take the punt. Sometimes it doesn't work out for you. Mick, what about you, mate?
Yeah.
You got one for us?
Yeah, like Dan said, the pickings are pretty slim. The only other one maybe you might consider is Josh Weddle from Hawthorn, averaging 46. He had a 54 on the weekend, priced at 130 with a break even of negative 18. So if he gets picked and you are looking to get for a downgrade option, Rory Atkins I think he's the prime pick, even though he is priced pretty high at 203. But if you're looking at a cheaper one, then maybe Weddle, something you might consider. But I can't see him making much more than, say, 80, 90K. And you might have to cash him out at about 200, 220, 230. So if you're desperate, maybe look at him. But otherwise, I'd probably pass.
Well, a couple from me. I was surprised only 60% of people actually own Alex Chimkota from Carlton. So he's only 178K still. So if you don't, I reckon, given his break even still minus 57, I reckon, Dan, I reckon his job security is pretty good. It's the first time I've seen him play against Brisbane. He looked pretty good. So it's not too late to jump on him. And there's a couple from my side. Last week I was reluctant on Sam Simpson, but I think with Geelong's injuries, he'll get a few more games. And so he's still relatively cheap. And Mitch Nevitt's the other one. So he easily played his best game against the Crows. So I can't see him being dropped for at least a good 4 or 5 weeks. And then he's only 165K. So he'd probably make a couple $100,000 by the time he gets the flick from the side. So he's one I'd consider as well for sure. So a few options out there. He's played 2 games, so right in the spot to make some cash. But yeah, we're right. There's not much out there at the moment, so you have to be a bit creative. So being a bit creative might mean you actually have to go with just someone less than sort of 550k when you go with that upgrade. So rather than going for I think Bond's over 700,000 now and a ridiculous price. So if you're looking to find that there's diamonds in the rough, maybe there's a few fallen primos we can consider this week. I might start with you, Mick. Who might you have on the radar? Sort of the less than 550k blokes that we can target.
Yeah, I think look, your boy Andrew Brayshaw is still priced at 530. He's come back with a 149 this week. I don't know. I had him in my team last year. I didn't start with him because of that high price, that sort of 615 or 620, whatever he started the season with. So down at 530 now, that's really, really tempting, I think. Probably that'll be the main one. I think there's a couple of others like Jack Steele, who's he's priced at 524, but he only got 95 on the weekend. So I'm not really sure about his consistency level this year. It just doesn't seem to be up there what it was for the last 2 or 3 seasons. So I'm probably going to be looking at your boy Andy, I think, as my main fallen premate this week.
Well, I'll give Dan. I might give you a couple of minutes to come up with another one because I reckon that was the one you were going to talk about.
He definitely was.
That's what I get reading the run sheet. Sorry, boys.
Look, I would have just pumped him up as a player that we'd never spoken about before on the show. But I went with I think my backup is Callum Mills. Now, I think there's been a rival SuperCoach podcast that maybe has had a bit to say about Horst Longmire and what his choices are around Callum Mills playing in mid.
Are you telling me that you're are you watching other podcasts and not just going with us? Is that what you're saying?
I'm not. It is one of our faithful followers has mentioned this, so shout out to them. But yeah, that was pointed out that he's their best midfielder and he's not really attending centre bounce clearances. He finally turned up on the weekend and played a bit more through the midfield against Collingwood. So just one to look out for. Look, he's at 523 K at the moment, and this was a guy that was, I think we spoke about it last week. He was in the top 6 midfielders last year. He is an absolute freak. If he plays midfield, get on him. So please, just look at the stats for the next week and make your call. But come on, Horse, put him in.
Put him in. I agree. Mike, what about you, mate? I think you mentioned Lockie Neal earlier in the show as your Nathan. Is he someone we would be considering then?
Yeah, I thought.
No good?
Yeah, I thought for those that don't have him in their side, I know we've sort of a couple have had him as Nathan. He's a little bit up and down, but he is at 550k. He's actually projected to come down. I think it's at 580, 590. He's projected to come down quite significantly over the next couple of weeks. So it might be worth having a look. Like the break evens are 140, I think 150. So he's one really to have a look at his form over the next couple of weeks. And if he's getting hundreds to 120s, he'll fall within that sort of 550 range in a couple of weeks. So if you don't have him, definitely a watch. But I also might bring up another one from an interstate side, and that's Zach Butters. Not sure the extent of his injury. I think he was hobbling in the last quarter, but he's starting to churn out some much better scores and be a bit more consistent. If you sort of look at his trend over the last 5 weeks, he's starting to hit the hundreds and above. His 5-round average is 110. So definitely one to consider. He's at 500, just over 530,000 or so. So if you don't have Zach Butters in your forward line, I think that's a definite one to have a consideration for.
Wow, about time we talked about someone different aside from the same 10 blokes we always mention. It's interesting with Lockie Neal as well. I think Brisbane have the first bye in round 12, so I can imagine a lot of people waiting until they've had their bye and then putting a trade in just to get him into their side. So, like you said, have a good watch on that. One from me is he was so consistent for years, and then last year just dropped right off. But I haven't really watched much of the Swans except for the last couple of weeks, and I just reckon he's back to his sort of reliable self, and that's Jake Lloyd. Kick-ins,
Lloyd.
those possessions across half-back. He's had 2 scores under 100, a 77 and a 93. The rest are all over 100. Granted, you're not going to get 150s from him like you might get from some other backman, but you're not also going to get 40s or 50s. You're going to get hundreds for most weeks. So he's certainly cheap enough. I should have looked up how much he was before we actually jumped on the show, but that's all right. He's 530,000.
I can tell you,
530.
531. I've had him in my side, Scott, since the start of the year, or close to the start of the year. I just thought, as a sort of D4-ish, D3, D4, and he's actually, you're right, he's delivered, and he's ever reliable again this year.
So I think as the rookies sort of dry up and you're sort of having to scrounge to make your side better, it might be worth aiming at these 550 less than 550 sort of blokes rather than aiming for the big $700,000 ones. That's just a few ones out there. And maybe in the next couple of weeks we'll try and mention a couple more for the people out there as well, who are the whole 158 who watched last week. A record for us. So thanks to all those that watched. What we might do for the next couple of weeks or 2 or 3 weeks leading up to the buys is just sort of talk about strategies going into them, and certainly throughout the buy weeks. Firstly, maybe just this week, we'll just talk about what your buy strategy has been in the past, and if that's going to sort of change. We're 3 weeks out from the first buys in round 12. So maybe Mike, I'll start with you this time. What have you done in the past, and is it different to what you're going to do this year?
Yeah, it's an interesting one because I think in historically my form has always improved post buys, so I must be doing something right. But my sort of strategy going in as well, you've got to identify which players you want in your team. The non-negotiables and the ideals. If when you come out of those buys, when they're going to play. And how you're going to, who's your strategy to downgrade or to upgrade to those players at the right time. So it's actually, before you get there, it's actually a matter of sitting down just for a little half an hour and saying, okay, these three players I don't have in my side, I need them in my side. So at what point over those 3 or 4 rounds are you going to bring them in? So I'm sort of looking at the Bonts of this world, the Dawsons and these guys that I currently don't have. When are they going to be projected to be the right time and after they've had their bye? But if you're not having these types of players in, they're averaging 130 plus afterwards, I think you're really going to be struggling to have any impact this season.
Yeah, nice one. Dan, what about you? Your strategy much different from that, or?
Look, pretty similar. I go through waves. I think he's like Mike's right in that you have to plan it out. And really, I don't know. I don't do much more than having a look at whether I can field as close to 18 sort of players in each week as possible, knowing that that's all you have to do. And just sort of looking through it, who I've got, and then just making that call over if there is someone that I do want to bring in. Where that fits in terms of trying to get to that 18, and knowing that obviously that probably the biggest stress is to do with rookies and people on the bench for cover for those players that aren't playing in that week. Sometimes it's, I don't know, chuck up a team and just hope for the best as well. And look, sometimes it works. Because the other option is, if you win. What have we got? We're at 4 buy rounds this year. If you win 2 of those 4, you're still doing okay. Like, you might be able to look at it and go, well, most of my players are going to be off when, North and North and Port and GWS or something have a buy at the same week, and maybe take a loss there, but you might win all the other rounds. So different strategies.
Yeah. What about you, Mick? Anything to add to the buy round strategies at this point?
Yeah, in years gone by, I've actually had this really nerdy, ridiculous spreadsheet that I've had with color coded on all the names of my players to color coded to which buy round they played, so I could have it all balanced out. Didn't work for me. I haven't won a league in probably 3 years, so So I'm ditching that. I'm just looking at my team for the round 15 buy, and I've got 9 premiums that are going to be out that week. So my strategy, rather than trading guys out that are pretty much set for the season, I'm just going to write that week off. I'm pretty well covered for the other 3 buy rounds. I think I've only got sort of at most 7 players out on one of the other rounds. So I should be able to field a decent 18 the other 3 weeks. So my strategy would be to right off round 15, and I'll just post up the best score that I can. But I'm just going to concentrate on what my team looks like after the buys rather than leading up into it, and making sure I come out full primo, and then with a good run of steam heading into the finals, and at least a few 8 to 10 trades hopefully up my sleeve by then to cover any injuries and possible upgrades. That's what I'll be doing.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like this year, this used to be 6 teams having a bye each week, whereas sort of this year, the round 12 there's 4, but in round 13 there's only 2, Geelong and Gold Coast, and most people probably don't have too many Geelong and Gold Coast players running around. So I think you'll easily be able to field 18 regardless in round 13, and then it's sort of those 2 rounds, 14 and 15 with the 6 sides. Like you said, round 15, a lot of people have the Dawsons, Dacos, Laird, Marshall, Dunkley. So it might be just if you've get yourself to 18 by that round. I always just write off the first one and just hope for the best. You're not going to make any trades to make your side better, only for that bloke to not play in a round later. So I just hope for the best that I can win round 12, and from there you just basically start bringing sides in. Players in that have had their bye. I don't bother planning any more in advance than that, which is maybe I should be, but I tend to get pretty lucky in the bye rounds and just make sure I've got as close to 18. The other thing, a sort of strategy I have is just having a look in the league that's most important to you. Just have a look at your playing and sort of have a count of how many players they've got, and if they're in a similar boat to you, you just sort of ride your luck. And you definitely need those blokes that can get the 150s and nab them right. And if you've got them as the captain, that makes a huge difference when you're only counting 18. So if you haven't got the Dawsons and whoever else Mike said Bonds, then you'd want to get them in for some of those buy rounds for sure. So we'll have a chat about the buys in a couple of weeks again as we get closer to the first one and see if our thoughts have changed a bit. Last couple of things to sort of thought we'd finish on. Thought we might actually just share maybe our best and worst trade of the season. Dan, I'll start with you. Best and worst trades of the season. Actually, Dan, I'll go to you last because then you can just let that flow nicely into your rage trade corner for this week. I'll start with you, Mick. Your best and worst trades of the season to date.
Best would probably be. I'd have to go with Bont. I think I got Bont in to my team right at the right sort of time. He lost a couple of dollars at the start of the season. I'm just trying to. He went down to. I didn't lose a lot. He started with a 107 and 25 and an 89, and then I bought him in when he was priced about 20k under what he started. And since then, he's gone up by a total of. He's all up. He's gone up 85. So he started at 740 and now, 640. Now he's 725. So he's been phenomenal. My worst by far would be getting rid of Errol Goulden after his one subpar. What do we call it? Subpar. It was a rubbish score of 45. Rage traded the hell out of him, and then he's come back with 2 120 pluses the 2 following weeks. So yeah, not going to leave that one down in a hurry.
Oh dear, no, it's on Mickey. Mike, what about you, mate? Your best and worst trades of the season at this point, a third of the way through.
Yeah, look, it's sorry to say I can't. I'm struggling to think of a good trade, which sort of says a lot for my season so far. But I
What
actually
about
took
what about a
took
block
the,
to start with, then that it's good?
Yeah, no, I did come up with one which also says something. I bit the bullet after his 170 plus in round 1 and jumped on Luke Ryan before his price went up. I think he was at 520, 525 at the start of the year. And I've had him in previous years. I undernarred him before the season. I thought, well, if he's going to be doing that same role across the back line, kick-ins, etc. So I brought him in. He's still averaging 120 and he gets over 100 every single week. I think he's my D2 2 after Dacos, and he's a great performer. My rucks is easy. Sorry, my worst trade is easy. It's my bloody rucks. Like I reckon I've made 3 trades in the last 4 years on my rucks, barring any injury. I've made 3 trades just this year already on my rucks, and tossing up between Gawn and English. Went with Gawn, goes down for a 0-0. Tossing up between Cameron and Grundy. Cameron and English. Went Cameron because of the price and the dual position. He gets injured the first game. I picked him up. Went Grundy. Just got Grundy out. I'm back to English. So I've blown. How many trades is that I've got in the one position this year? So definitely the rucks.
Yeah. Well, what about you, Dan? Best and worst trades for the. I reckon I can guess. I haven't looked at the running sheet. I reckon I can guess your. I bet he's a cat man, the worst one. Yes.
You would guess right. Yeah.
Best worst.
So best trade would have to be Jack Zeeble. We were talking about him, I think, in that the week before I picked him up, we were talking about how he'd started scoring well, and we all agreed that we hadn't watched many North games because who would? And so we were sort of talking about it and going, well, where is he getting his points from? And he's playing that halfback role where he just absolutely towers it up. And if you watched, well, I didn't watch any of the game, I'll be honest. I was just watching the SuperCoach scores. If you watch the SuperCoach scores against St Kilda, they go going up and up and up. So I think he was close to the top scorer of the round. I think. I don't know. What do you got? What do you get? 160 something.
No, Anderson.
Anyway, so he's the best. Worst by far would have to be my really, really, really clever trade to Duncan off the back of his first score. Played one game, scored 116. Thought, how can I lose? Bring him in for a score of 34 and straight out the next week. So latest Duncan.
Nice one. From my perspective, the best trades are for the first show of the year. Mike and I was the first 2 on it, and we talked about those rucks. And I'm just happy that I just I said Gawn, he said English, and then we both switched to the last minute. And I've just haven't had to change English and Marshall all year. So happy to have not even wasted trades in the ruck department, which is great. That's the best decision I've made for the year. Worst trades I could probably reel off most of my side. I ruined LDU's career, and I've ruined Brayshaw's up until this week, and McRae's no good, and a few others like that. But the one I've actually traded out, where I named my side after and talked up, was Max Holmes. And so I jumped off him after he had a poor score, and since then, so maybe around round 3, he had a no good score. I thought, he's not actually going to make me any money. And since then, 115, 96, 98, 103, and 102. And so he's nearly up to 500,000. So, and he'll keep rising, I reckon. He's just getting better and better. So I'm just disappointed that I named my team after him and don't stick fat. And then I've got clowns like Setterfield doing nothing for me. Sorry, Setters, if you're watching. But yeah, that's my most disappointing and worst trade of the year. Speaking of trades, to finish up, Dan, let's get to your rage trade corner. The fans, this is what they all come for. Who's on the chopping block? Who are we raging out?
Wow. Bit of production value just there with a change to the Zoom background just for the rage trade. I'm gonna have to go this week with a guy that probably doesn't deserve the tag of a rage trade because he's done really well. But looking through, Neil was close, but I was like, nah, you can't do that. Come on, that would be ridiculous to get rid of Neil after bringing him in. So, and I still might. I've gone with Will Ashcroft, who really, like, last week he kicked the goal of the year. He scored 103, played a great game. This week against us, only scored a measly 43 points. So Will Trashcroft, you're getting the flick this week, and so I won't regret it either.
Nah, I got rid of him 3 weeks ago, mate. He was no value for me then. So had to get rid of him. I think that's probably why part of the reason I won this week is that I didn't have him, and I think you had him, Mick, so that was good. Cool. So Ashcroft out the door. Nice one. Final thoughts, Mike, from you first, maybe for round 9, captain choices, maybe, or any other exciting stuff to tell us.
I don't know, not a lot of exciting stuff. I think my advice earlier rings true. Just have a look at who's playing the Eagles. Just think at who's playing against them in the ruck. You're planned for, because I tell you, you're going to get a lot of the ball. We played a very, very ordinary side on the weekend, and they made us look pretty shit house. Like generally my strategy now is, and what I sort of recommend is, if you're not in the top 10,000, 5,000, you're chasing the big prize, you've got to be looking at your leagues and stop worrying fully on your own side and start worrying about the side you're in, the league you really want to win, the side. And Dan, you're in my radar, right? You're this week. Yes, you've got to start looking at the side you're about to play and have a look at who they've got. And if you're eager to get someone in that they've got, or vice versa, it sort of adds another layer of your decision making. So you're out there to get league wins, right? So have a look at your opponent. Check out their game style, right? And play the man a bit rather than playing the ball.
Nice one. Eagles playing the Suns. I actually tweeted to some bloke. I'm not going to mention people from other podcasts, but I just said, Tug Miller's a couple weeks ago. I said, Tug Miller's out. I reckon Noah Anderson's average will go up from 94. We'll just keep a track of it. And I've just been adding to my tweet each week, and he got 140 and 190. So I said, hey, I reckon he's going to dominate, but I don't bring him in. So against the Eagles, we expect 250 this week, probably. Dan, do you final thoughts, mate, for round 9?
Just one to be wary of, that there are 2 Friday night games this week, which is a bit odd. So we've got the Cats versus Richmond at 7:20 at the G, and then over in the West we've got that game, which will be the best game of the round. The Suns versus West Coast. So just be aware of that, and just looking at the week ahead. There's a few interesting matchups. I think, as you saw, a big inside midfielder, Dunkley, absolutely tore us to shreds. So Bont's probably on track for another 180 or something. Might be worth chucking just keep the captain on Bont. Let's be honest.
Yeah, nice one, Mick. Final thoughts, buddy?
Yeah, I was tempted to change it up a little bit this week and put the VC on Taranto, but playing against the Cats, I don't think he's going to have as much free-wheeling possessions as he was getting last week. So I'm probably going to shelve that idea. I think my VC, I'm probably going to go with where was it? Probably the Saturday night game. We got Brisbane Essendon. So I think Hawthorn Melbourne in the afternoon. So probably Petrarca into Bontempelli. Carlton West Coast Carlton Doggies also playing Saturday night. And then you got the Brisbane game on the Saturday night as well. So if you want to use Dunkley or Bont or Petrarca or Oliver, they're all quite close together, those games. So it's going to be an interesting one. I'm still pondering who to do, because I want to make sure I'm staying on top of it and using my loopholing right at the right moment. So I think at this stage it'll be Petrarca into Bontempelli.
Nice one. Well, when Geelong played Richmond last year, Geelong backman floored Dion Prestia, and now this week he's going to go and captain against them. So I think he might get booed a little bit this week, but he was also best on ground that day and scored 170. So it wouldn't surprise me if that rolls Tom Stewart up a little bit. And if you've got him and you want a Friday night VC, that might be a definite unique one to go. But then I'll probably be looking at whoever I've got on the Saturday, and then I've got Jordan Dawson on the Sunday. So, I haven't seen much of him this year, but against Geelong, he was unreal. So that's my plan for this week. Thanks, everyone, for watching again. We'll see if we can get to 160 viewers this week. Enjoy your SuperCoach week, and I'll see you all next week. Thanks, guys.